Twitter and Square CEO Jack Dorsey says hyperinflation will happen soon in the U.S. and the world. Now, hyperinflation, for people that don't know, Kai, it's two months in or 50%.
Yeah,
it's
50% increase month over month.
Yeah, but that's what the scholars have put it. That doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
No.
Hyperinflation could be 10%, 15%, but
Correct.
the scholar said categorically it's 50%. So they just kind of came up with this number, and we followed that guideline. But here's what happened. This is a CNBC story. Twitter co-founder Jack Dorsey weighed in on escalating inflation in the U.S., saying things are going to get considerably worse. Hyperinflation is going to change everything. Dorsey tweeted, "It's happening." He added that he sees the inflation problem escalating around the globe. It will happen in the U.S. soon, and so the world. The tweet comes with consumer price inflation running near a 30-year high in the U.S. and growing concern that the problem could be worse than policymakers have anticipated. It's one thing to call for faster inflation, but it may be surprising to some that Dorsey used the word hyperinflation, a condition of rapidly rising prices that can ruin currencies and bring down whole economies. So I'm going to go to you first with this one before I go to Tyler and Kai.
Well, I think for sure, no matter what Jack Dorsey says on Twitter, I don't think he's going to get removed or canceled from Twitter.
That's a good point.
I think no matter what he says,
Your
he's going
level of research is ridiculous.
He's going to be okay.
Adam, real quick,
yes.
how'd you get to that conclusion?
Yeah, I think, he knows that people are too on Twitter. But I know you brushed over the numbers, but I actually thought you'd be a little bit more...
I'm reading the story first, and then we can
No, meaning like you're a numbers guy.
Yeah.
And inflation typically runs at what, 2 to 3% year over year.
2%
right?
is a good level of inflation.
Right? So Social Security was just adjusted for our seniors. We have a large senior community. This is our podcast. It was just adjusted.
Believe it or not, you're not joking.
Yeah.
We have actually a big senior community.
We do.
As crazy as it sounds.
Yeah.
I got stopped by a 78-year-old at the beach saying, "Hey, I listen to every single podcast you guys do." And not only that, she's a 78-year-old Jewish grandma.
That's awesome.
She says, "You're the only podcast I listen to."
It happens to be my grandma. But
it ain't your grandma.
Whatever, bro. But the reality is they just got I don't even call it a pay raise, a retirement raise of 5.9%. Right? There's no secret that inflation's definitely gone up. They're saying that it's somewhere around 5-6%. They're saying that it's transitory. Maybe it's not transitory. But I think when you use the word hyperinflation, so if you're typically running at 2 to 3%, and there was just a adjustment in cost of living at 5-6%, and now you're talking, the definition of inflation is 50% a month or 1,000% a year.
Yeah, hyperinflation.
We're not hyperinflation. It's not even close. So is it hyperbolic? Yes. Is it accurate? Maybe not. I mean, and then who's been speaking against Jack Dorsey? Economist David Rosenberg. Kathy Wood from ARC came out and she said, "Look, you don't know what you're talking about, bro."
Well,
Jim Cramer even said something as well.
She can. So that's a religion, right? Whether you're going to agree with her, because she talked about the fact that in 2008 she believed hyperinflation was coming because the whole Alan Greenspan, quantitative easing that she did. She said, "I ended up being wrong."
Yeah, she walked that back.
Yeah.
So
she's the opposite end of Michael Burry. Just remember that. So.
She's the opposite of Burry.
She's whatever Burry believes, she's the complete opposite.
Why is that?
Burry shorts Tesla, she longs Tesla.
Right.
So you just got to know.
Very big on
and somehow they're both very successful investors.
They're both very successful, but they're very opposite religions. I want you to know.
She's doing okay with Tesla right now.
I'm not saying it. I'm just saying those are two opposites. So if you're a Burry camp, she's the opposite.
The point that I'm ultimately getting at is inflation here? Yes. Is inflation real? Yes. Is hyperinflation here yet? There's no indication that that's here yet. This is all speculation. This is him being hyperbolic. Yeah. And he's not going to get canceled for saying stuff like this. When was the last time that in United States we had hyperinflation? Hyperinflation. From what I understand, it hasn't happened since the freaking Civil War.
Right. There's only been
hyperinflation.
62 certified cases in world history. So it's very rare.
Okay. I mean, look at what's going on in Venezuela right now. You think that's hyperinflation.
Right.
Think that's happening here? I don't think so.
But here's the question.
Yes,
are you saying it's not possible?
Anything's possible.
Okay. So
anything's possible.
But what you're saying is that it's not going to happen this time around.
I just
So why don't you unpack why you don't think it can happen this time around? You seem very certain about it. I like it. I like your certainty because I don't want hyperinflation. I want to lean on your confidence. Educate the rest of us why you don't think it can happen this time.
I don't want it either, to be clear. But when you have economists weighing in.
Got it.
And they're basically saying, hey, Jack Dorsey, stick to your long beards and tweeting.
Go back to smoking a pipe and all that stuff. I saw that stuff.
We'll take it from here.
Yeah.
So as much as he does have a credible opinion.
But I want you to go deeper, homeboy. I want you to go deeper. I want you to go deeper and actually think about it. Let's actually go there. Let's actually talk about it.
Okay.
So why don't we think it's because half the battle with this is what I tweet. Can you put that tweet I just text you right now with Dorsey? I said, this is Dorsey's tweet. Hyperinflation is going to change everything. It's happening. I said, you have two groups here. Number one, many entrepreneurs and operators who say hyperinflation is coming. Number two, many scholars and professors who say it's not. One is in the game. The other studies the game. Who's right? We're going to find out, okay? Because you got two guys. One is the professors. It'll never happen. The economists. It'll never happen. Dorsey's in it, runs Square, gets every data, probably has more access to data than anybody else in the world to find out the transactions and the 10 different things that they offer there with their, credit services, with their, payments. They can find out who's buying what at what point. They can see everything. No one has more. There's probably only there's probably only 20 people that have access to that kind of data as he does, okay? Yeah. It's probably going to be Jamie Dimon. It's probably going to be Stripe. It's going to be some of those guys.
Some of the
banks, it's not a guy that's saying something like this that woke up one day, smoked some hash, and is like, hey, hyperinflation is coming.
And he doesn't also seem like somebody who has wild predictions and just throws things out there kind of about stuff like that normally anyway. So.
But don't forget, this is the same guy that also permanently banned Trump. So
true.
You have to know that
obviously.
You can't say this guy. So you have to know where his processing comes from. But hyperinflation, I want us to go deeper.
Look,
why don't we think it'll happen this time?
I'm not saying that I don't think it will happen. I'm just giving some numbers out there. What actual inflation is, where the adjusted cost of living is for seniors right now, and the benchmarks that you have to reach hyperinflation. Again, inflation is here. No doubt. We printed 40% of the world's of United States money in the last 18 months. We printed $5 trillion. That's no freaking joke. I'm not downplaying that whatsoever.
Right.
But have we hit 50% a month? Have we hit 1,000% a year? We haven't hit that yet.
What if we've hit a tipping point where that's where we're headed?
That's the question.
That's what I'm concerned about.
Hang on. Hyperinflation by whose standards? Does Jack Dorsey mean hyperinflation at 50% month over month, 1,000% a year? Or is he being a little bit hyperbolic, but 10% inflation? It's not hyperinflation, but you definitely feel it. It hurts. It's going to hurt the economy. It's going to blow. So hyperinflation by whose standards?
Okay. Yeah. So then use the word high inflation. But to use hyperinflation, like we're using definitions right here, right?
Right.
Hey, high inflation's here, bro. Brace yourself. Okay, cool. I got it.
By the way,
but to say hyperinflation,
you make a good point because the Morgan Stanley CIO came out yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Morgan Stanley CIO came out and they asked him saying, "Hey, what do you think about the fact that Dorsey said?" hyperinflation or stagflation. He says that you can't use those words. He says, we're not going to use those words. What we do believe is inflation is here and it ain't going away anytime soon. So he didn't say what Yellen said 3 months ago, which is it's just like temporary. It's going to go away, or what Biden said at the CNN town hall when he said, probably in the first or second quarter of 2022, it's going to go away. Gas prices are going to go back down to what it is. And then the guy asked and says, so some of the issues, and then he went into border, which we'll get into that later on. But Morgan Stanley CIO agrees with you. They don't think hyperinflation is coming. All I'm asking for is indicators to make us believe that that's not going to happen. Because what is the cause of inflation? What causes inflation?
Printing of money.
Okay, what else?
Money supply.
Too much
what
money?
else is it? Right. Too much money.
It's a supply and demand thing, right?
It's a supply and demand thing. What else is it?
Workforce.
Workforce. What else is it?
Well, I would say the fact
cost of goods, obviously.
S&P and Dow hit all-time highs is a big.
Say that again.
S&P and Dow hit all-time highs yesterday. It's like why did they do that?
What
there's
else?
There's no
access to
frothy
goods.
Access to goods. A bunch of stuff that are finance, fake success.
Yeah, credits, debt.
All of that stuff, right? That's causing hyperinflation. Now, I'm going to read Janet Yellen before we continue with this. Here's what Janet Yellen had to say about inflation just yesterday or 2 days ago. Yellen says Americans have experienced current inflation rate in a long time. Haven't experienced current inflation rates in a long time. A CNBC story. Many firms are experiencing a shortage of labor, Yellen says during an interview with CNN Sunday. The COVID shock to the economy has caused disruptions that we'll be working through over the next year. And of course, Americans haven't seen inflation like we've experienced in a long time. Host Jake Tapper noted how inflation is growing at its fastest pace in 30 years and asked whether spending more money on Biden's Build Back Better agenda will be pouring gas on the inflation fire, prompting Yellen to say the spending on the bipartisan infrastructure package and a massive social spending package would be spread out over the next decade. Tapper later asked Yellen when she expects the inflation rate to return to 2% levels, which the Federal Reserve classifies as acceptable. She replied, I expect improvement by the middle of next year, second half of next year is what she's saying. Okay, that's her words. Let me see if there's anything else. That's it. Okay.
I have two questions.
Go for it.
Question number one, do you believe her?
Do I believe her?
What she's saying?
Absolutely not.
And question number two, do you believe that she believes what she's saying?
I actually think she does.
Okay.
I actually think she does because, and this is a smart woman. This is not a person that hasn't been around. She's a smart.
She's been done fair share of
I
things.
actually think she does, and I actually think a part of it is what you're supposed to do to make the world not panic and overreact. Because the last thing they want is for people to stop buying, for people to stop spending, for hoarding, going back into that mode.
No.
That is not a thing she wants for the economy because that's not her job. Now, I called Goldman Sachs yesterday just to kind of find out what their thoughts are on what's going on. I said, so what do you think is going to happen with rates? He says, well, Powell's already said they're going up. I said, okay, what do you think is going to happen with inflation? He says, it's here. It's not going away. And to control inflation, the way you do it is by increasing the rates, right? So,
so it slows things down.
Say hyperinflation goes. Okay, you go study Jimmy Carter. Today I did a video talking about is Joe Biden the next Jimmy Carter 2.0 or much worse, right?
Yeah.
And we compared how many markers? 10 markers?
Yeah, something like that.
On how inflation was, how misery index was. And we compared from the beginning of his administration to the time he ended, and we compared Biden from the day he got started to where it is today. So it's a very interesting thing. Inflation during Jimmy Carter, do you know how high it got? Nearly 14%.
Yeah.
Okay? During Jimmy Carter.
Well, interest rates were double digits at that point,
CDs, you
right?
could get
Insane.
a 16% CD.
Talk about save that money.
Yeah, 16% CD, but it means nothing if you're making 16% CD and inflation is 14%. You're only
And if your mortgage is 12%.
Yeah, that means nothing. So
it's all out of whack.
Here's why hyperinflation may not show up. This is when they say hyperinflation may not show up. Here's how hyperinflation may not show up. Hyperinflation may not show up, but 10-15% interest rates may. Before hyperinflation shows up, they will control it by making interest rates 10 to 15%.
Slamming the brakes.
Slamming the brakes at the highest level. Listen, pump the brakes. Don't go finance anymore. If you can't afford $1 million home and you can't put 20% down, guess what? This ain't for you, okay?
Restrict the
no more
access.
5%, no more 10%, none of this stuff. Just go back and buy a $500,000 house and come back 3 years later.
No more
5 years
easy
later.
money. No more free money.
The whole fake money, the easy
Yes.
money stuff. Because money is so freaking cheap right now. It's ridiculous
There is
how
a
cheap
part.
money
There
is
is a
right
part
now.
of you. Correct me if I'm wrong, because with all the printing and the fake success, because you get worked up about this, there is a part of you that definitely wants to see some things crumble, some things crash.
Why would I want it, though? Tell me why I would want it.
Because
Tell me how
you've
it-
actually made your success the right way.
Yeah.
So when you see fake success, you're like, this.
But let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. So why would I want it? Unpack why I would want it.
Why would you want?
Why would I want that to happen?
Just so reality comes back to normal. I think. I mean, you see a story out there that you put $100 into Shiba Inu, some crypto coin, and
Yeah.
now you're worth $1 million.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous.
Okay.
It's just so far fetched.
Sure.
It's fake success.
The
It's fake
o-
money.
the
If you
only-
made it the real way, why would you want fake?
The only time where you would want something like this to happen is sometimes we have to be reminded by reality hitting us.
Yeah.
And it hasn't hit America yet.
I also think it's a restructuring of the people who can and know how to do it versus the
That's
people.
one area, but
Yeah.
to me, sometimes, look, we can sit here and philosophically talk about 93 keys to success and how to do this with money and how to do that with money. Sometimes it's simplicity, man. It forces you to go back to simple concepts. This is not about quantitative easing or QE, QOVs or
Don't spend more than you
P&E
have.
It just
Yeah.
goes back to basics. So America needs to be humbled a little bit by the economy. And the
Yeah.
way we're going right now, people are thinking this is going to last forever. We had a guy who we were working at Bally's. We both leave Bally's. I go to the insurance industry. Within 3 years in the insurance industry, I'm barely making 6 figures a year. Within 3 years in the mortgage industry, he's making $500K per month.
Wow.
We go to
Per
the bank
month.
per month. I go to the bank, and I'm fighting B of A on a fee. He's two tellers down. He's saying, I'd like to deposit $1.3 million. And I look at him, I'm like, he looks at me and says, hey, Pat, This mother, he just deposited 1.3 million. Just give me the
This is what-
30K.
What year is this?
This is 2004, 2005. First
And he's in
quarter
the
of
mortgage
2000
industry?
He's in the mortgage industry.
Oh,
he's making $500K a month. You know what?
Fake.
You know
It's
what
fake.
happened to that guy? You know, he had 4 Rolls Royces parked outside. You know, he says, I need 4 different color 4 Rolls Royces. Living in all the, everything was financed. Guess what happened? He lost it all. Tax, every single thing wiped out because that was fake success.
Yes.
And fake success gets filtered out very, very quickly. And it's going to happen again. But the direction we're going right now, when a Jack Dorsey says something like this, and people say that'll never happen, the only reason I agree that hyperinflation will never happen is because before hyperinflation comes, you're going to experience 10, 15% interest. Oh, you'll see. There'll be 10, 15% interest.
And there's also something to be said about there's so many people that are getting money or making money without working.
Right. And here's
Let me just finish this and then I'll go to you. There's what happened to just hard work in America. I'm working my ass off. I'm working hard. I'm working smart. And I'm reaping the benefits of what I sow. Now it's stimulus checks, right? It's unemployment. It's crypto. It's NFT. It's whatever, stock market. It's my house just appreciated 35%. It's cash, all cash buyers. It seems a little too good to be true. And when it is,
It usually is.
it usually is.
But Adam, you know, that's what 80 million people voted for.
Oh, you're going to make this political now.
But that is what 80 million people voted for.
How so?
He explained his tax plan. He explained to build it back better.
But none of that had to do with taxes, though. None of that. What I just said.
What doesn't have to do with taxes?
The unemployment, the stimulus.
Wait.
Trump gave just as much money as Biden.
Stop. This doesn't have to do with stimulus. This doesn't have to do with...
No, it does, but not taxes.
Trump gave stimulus when the entire country was locked down. You couldn't do shit.
Two stimulus.
You couldn't do anything. Nobody could go to work.
I understand.
Do you remember in Dallas, we'd drive the streets, we're like, shit, are we going to say we're essential or non-essential? Do you remember that?
I remember when I was worried I'd have to have like a pass to basically show I'm going to work, don't arrest me.
Do you
don't arrest
remember
me.
that?
Yes.
We would drive the streets worried because all of the freeways were empty.
Nothing.
I did a story one time. I'm like, look at this. This doesn't make any sense.
At
The place was
7:30 in the
Must have
morning,
been
rush
in
hour.
April or when this is when it
But
first
this
hit.
lasted 3, 4, 5 months.
Yeah,
this
I
isn't
agree.
like it lasted a month. We came every day to work. We came 7 days a week
Yeah.
to work
It was
during
wild.
that time. But it was
Good
wild.
old days.
So
Yes.
the point is, that is a different era. But if you continue like this, here's what'll happen.
I'm with you.
Let me explain. No, I know you're with me, but this is what people voted for. The people that voted for Biden are getting exactly what they voted for. This is what they wanted. So you have to understand that when congressmen and senators get up and they say, I'm working for my constituents, you know, when they say things like that, like, you know, they give a Manchin a hard time, and Manchin says, listen, do you know where I live? Do
Live in
you
the
know where
reddest
my
state in
county
America.
is? But you know, he just talked about the other day. He's thinking about leaving the party. I don't know if you read that article or not. That Manchin is leaving the
Yeah,
party.
there
Can
was
you
some
pull up that
there was some
article about
back
the
and
fact
forth
that
with-
Manchin wants to leave the party? But I'm gonna give you the story here. Denver's airport held a job fair to plug its huge labor shortage. David, I think your mic is on. To plug its huge labor shortage, an exec said he'd hoped 5,000 people would come, but only 100 people showed up to the job fair, okay? 100 people. Let me read the story to you, and then we'll go to what you're trying to pull up here. So 5,000 people they're expecting. 100 people show up to the job fair.
Page 6.
Dennis Deslongchamp, the president of Denver Commissaries Association, said that the organizers had hoped for 5,000 people to show up to the job fair, which he called a very lofty goal. Organizers had wanted to fill out about 1,000 jobs at the airport, but only 100 people came to the 4-hour fair. The airport's labor shortage could be contributing to huge airport security lines as travel rebounds. The airport also hasn't been able to fully reopen its shuttle bus that ferries travelers to the airport because of a shortage of drivers at its shuttle bus contractor. So what's the point here? Even if the jobs are out there, people are not wanting the job because I don't need to go back to work. I'm chilling, getting unemployment.
What happens when the people, you've talked about this a few times on the podcast, when the people that are making $18 an hour to flip a burger, the restaurant workers, you know, the minimum wage jobs that are making $20 an hour, what happens when they're either replaced or their wages drop substantially, right? And on top of that, when we pump the $2 million for the budget bill and the $2 trillion and the $1.5 trillion for the infrastructure bill, when that all comes through, what happens? When the wages drop or they're replaced by kiosks, the McDonald's workers, the Burger King workers, the people that are replaceable by machines, and the truck drivers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What happens when they're all replaced? Or the wages drop?
UBI, baby.
Are you asking us?
Yeah. I mean, what happens?
Or are you asking them?
Does
because
this,
we know what happens.
Does this attribute to the inflation and to, like Kai said, a point of no return where we could hit inflation that's unstoppable? Maybe not hyperinflation, but maybe 25, 30, 35%.
Listen, there's a community in politics like Yellen who hate billionaires. They passionately hate billionaires. They hate the fact that these people have that much money. They hate the fact that Musk is worth 200 and whatever $billion, nearly $300 billion. They hate that a guy is that successful. They cannot stand it. So Yellen says, is the story here with Yellen and unrealized gains or no? I thought that story was somewhere here.
Page 9.
Okay, where's Yellen saying what she says?
By the way, let me give you one little quick.
I don't see the page 9. It's go ahead. I'm listening. To
just before we move on to the talking about
there it is. Got it.
Talking about the job fair.
Yeah.
This is just a little quick case example. You talked about minimum wage, $15 an hour, $18 an hour, $20. I went driving through Taco Bell the other day. You remember I was out here eating my Taco Bell. This is I think Friday. Yeah. As I'm in line, I never go to Taco Bell, by the way. There's a help wanted. You know how much they were saying for employee X and for assistant manager X? Do you know how much they were offering? Take a guess.
23.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I guess.
Yeah, what do you
I'd
got?
say 45 grand or 50 grand a year for the lower end.
These are just workers at Taco Bell. Workers.
$20 an hour.
Okay, how about I had to do a double take. $8 an hour for an employee and $10 for an assistant manager. Really? Those were the numbers. I go, what? This is in Florida, in Boca Raton, Deerfield. I go, who the hell is going to apply for? Who wants this job? You're hearing people that you can go to Taco Bell right now and take a picture of this sign. It's right there.
So do you think they're worth more than that?
I'm
you
just
think
saying
they should be paid $15 an hour?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you're the employee's perspective, we talked about this story being, 100 people showed up to a 5,000. I mean, talk about expectations versus reality. I'm expecting 5,000 people, 100 people show up. If those are the actually numbers, we talked about the fight for $15 minimum wage. That was actually on the sign in front of ordering the Taco Bell. I'm thinking, no freaking way is anyone taking this job at this point. So now it's no wonder, all right, that they're not taking these jobs, because you could sit home and make triple that unemployment.
Yeah, but at the same, I know what you're saying, but Taco Bell is owned by Yum Brands, and you have to look at the EBITDA. I mean, the EBITDA margins, where they are. If the EBITDA margins are above 20% and they're only willing to pay $8 to $10, I mean, you got to increase the hour you're paying. It's a mathematical formula. They're sitting there saying what they can afford to pay. They're showing margins to the guy that's buying the Taco Bell. So if you end up doing $15 an hour, you're not selling a $50 steak. You're not selling a $20 steak. You're selling a $2 taco is what you're selling. How much margins do they have in there?
But the person that's going to take that job for $8, $10, $12 an hour.
It's a 16-year-old kid.
They can't spell EBITDA. They're not worried about EBITDA. They're like, should I take this job or not?
I'm not telling the kid to worry about EBITDA. The kid doesn't need to worry about EBITDA. But the guy running the business does, because the number one goal of a business is to what?
Be profitable.
To stay in business. You have to stay in business. If you don't stay in business, then what do? You got to stay in business. So what do you expect the guy to do? To go out of business? No, but I agree with you where they have to restructure. So to me, you're cornering me, the Taco Bell owner, to make the tacos price from $1.99 to $2.49.
To increase prices,
you're cornering me to no problem. But watch this. What's $1.99 to $2.49? How big of an increase is it?
It's 50 cents.
It's 50 cents, which is what? 25%.
Yeah, 25%.
What's 25% increase on $8? It's only $10. So it's not like they're going to go 15. So watch this.
Yeah.
To go from 8 to 15 is a 90% increase, right? So that means my $1.99 taco's got to be $3.79.
Yeah. I better get a chalupa for that price.
So, but $3.79 is a taco. Chalupa is what? How much is a chalupa?
I don't know.
Well, you look like you know what the price of a chalupa is.
I assume it's $3, $4.
Okay,
I don't know.
if your $4 chalupa all of a sudden becomes $7.50.
No, I'm not getting a chalupa.
Save that money. You know what a chalupa looks like.
I'm off the chalupa market.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.